Well, I was more than willing to.
Oh, I left mine on the.
Roger was just
Go ahead.
arranging.
You're here. I have to turn it back over to you, sir.
What a gift.
Can cut it up here.
So do you want to take these first?
I think so, yes. Well, we're gonna vote on the
Amendment with that.
extension of the addition of this, sentence that we
Oh, all right, so we have an amendment to the lease agreement to vote on. And so we'll take that up first. Any discussion? Sure, I'll take a motion.
Okay, I move for.
You got a motion?
Approve
I'll
the-
take a motion.
I move we approve amendment number 1 to the lease agreement.
Good, thank you. Discussion. Okay, all in favor? Raise your hand. All opposed? Any abstentions? We pass. The lease agreement amendment. All right, so next up is the extension to the lease agreement. These are technical terms that somewhat elude me, but we're going to add a sentence here to the lease extension agreement that's in front of us, just reaffirming that the 3-month deposit that we currently have in the bank account is sufficient, and that we will not be asked for more than what's in the account. So with that amendment to the agreement as it sits in front of you, do I have a motion?
Second.
Second. King Jack. All in favor? Okay, that was unanimous too. We don't have to go through that.
Except for the fact that it says that
Cinnamon's not.
wasn't here.
Doesn't get for either of them.
Is she taking the notes?
I took the notes. Good point. Okay. All right.
That sounds like a little bit of catch-22 there.
So it was a unanimous vote.
So, will you record the fact that you weren't here to vote?
I can do it.
Okay, so who proposed for the?
Where'd she go? Does anyone know? How'd she make that way?
I got it, I'll do it.
You got it.
Can't find it.
I can't find her.
Maybe she was asleep.
And I don't have her number to text her.
Now Tina's gonna disappear.
Found her. Oh. I thought she went off.
So I've got the notes that I can provide. Send them out.
To send. Okay. All right, so next on the agenda is the 2014-2015 budget as presented.
I just want to start and say that this budget based on 150 students was really difficult budget to develop. And I want to just get it in the record and note that the staff of the school was so, it was nice to have their input and have them involved. David and Tina and I think Denise had meetings with staff who wanted to meet. David had other meetings, staff talked to him. He presented us with a great document of a lot of ideas for both cost savings and revenue enhancements. Unfortunately, a lot of the revenue enhancements couldn't be added budget because they weren't calculable. So we couldn't really put numbers on them for reasons like not knowing what our lease covenants are about using facilities for revenue raising events and insurance issues, but also having direct programs that we could put dollars to and calculate revenues and expenses. So I think there were a lot of great ideas that could be pursued for extra revenue that may allow us to reevaluate the budget next year and maybe make some changes, but for budgeting purposes, those things were not able to put in. But I do have to give the staff kudos because they were very thoughtful, very engaged, and I think they were very honest and forthcoming with their concerns as well as the things they, thought made sense, and I think that they were very thoughtful and it was really appreciated. It made it a little easier for me. This budget is based on 150 students. We don't have 150 students yet, so, but based on last year's enrollment figures, we're hoping we're gonna hit that in August like we did last year. So you've received the notes, you've seen some of the calculations and stuff, and that's what I need to say about the budget at this point. So I guess I would move for the budget to be passed at this rate based on 150 students.
Is there a second? Yeah, I mean, you guys got
So we
something
can
going,
discuss.
right? Okay,
We get to discuss.
discussion. I mean, I guess I wanted to thank Katie for her work on this, because I know it was painful, and I know it took a lot of time and energy. And you obviously have been with the school since the very beginning, and have a lot invested in the school, emotionally, psychically. Just really appreciate, this is a really complicated, unpleasant task, and you took it on, so we really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I have to give kudos, Tina did a lot of hard work, and she does a pretty good spreadsheet for someone who's not a bean counter like me, I have to say. But thank you very much, I appreciate it.
I mean, you're not just a bean counter, so let's take that right out of the record.
All right.
That's exactly what I was trying to say. You looked hard at the numbers, but with a lot of deep understanding of what the school is trying to do what it can do.
And also with a lot of understanding that there are human impacts that are and ripple effects for every decision made that's connected to one of these numbers. I think that's what's been so sobering for all of us who've been involved in this process, is recognizing that we have something that we really value here in this school, and to have to essentially make cuts that amount to about 15% across the board means that we can't, there aren't any more places to nip and tuck. We really are starting to literally cut into the things that we value and we've developed over time. And that, we're small and we work closely together, and when that impacts someone's employment, we're talking about our close colleagues and the people who've helped to make the school what it is. So it's been really challenging, and again, I also want to commend the staff's engagement in a process that is heart-wrenching and challenging.
Yeah, and even though school districts across the state are cutting their budgets by similar amounts, not more, doesn't make it any less painful to have to do it ourselves.
But this is 2/3 of a page, which is what we're relying on. So I have to say that I appreciated the rich discussion that we had internally about what this means and who's involved, et cetera, et cetera. Helped me learn a great deal more about the school as well as the process, the implementing process as well.
Any more discussion? Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment, on the budget as it stands, that amendment. the voting. Well, we want to thank you for your service on board. This is Granger's last meeting as a member of the board. He's been here pretty much since the dawn of creation, and just really it's been a critical part of making New Roots move forward. So we all really want to thank you for being part of this and helping us get to where we are today. Well, we had a 3-year renewal, right? But, you know, we're moving forward. So thank you.
Thanks, Granger.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Ranger helped to pick out this carpet, by the way.
We've saved a lot of money because of the color you picked out.
That was the chairs.
And the chairs, that's right, exactly. Yeah.
So you're off to a photo shoot, so have a good one. All right, thanks, Granger.
Yeah, unless we want to talk about the accountability plan first, or we can do that afterwards.
Yes. Yeah, I think we should talk about the accountability plan. Just so you folks out there know, we realized that we hadn't finished our discussions that we needed to get, but we didn't want to keep you waiting for the votes.
You're going back.
We have additional personnel.
We're gonna do the accountability plan first.
So we're gonna
then
do
go
the
back.
accountability plan first, so that, probably at that point, when we come back, all we'll be doing is voting on the meeting, the minutes.
Which is.
No, we already
Very
did
good.
this.
We already did that before I
Let's
got
vote
here.
to adjourn.
We did that
Vote
other
to
meeting.
adjourn, that'll be it. There you go. So, Tina, do you wanna,
So the
introduce?
accountability plan goals that you see as part of the packet are the required measures from the Charter Schools Institute, which have been, as we discussed a number of months ago, have been revised for high schools. So we are required to use certain measures within our second charter term. There's been discussion around this table about adopting optional measures for our adoptional measures that help us to track progress of students in ways that are not being, that we can't do with these measures. That we can also use as a way of communicating with the authorizer and with the community in a more nuanced way about our accomplishments and successes with our students as well as our challenges. So what the Charter Schools Institute they're very excited, and, well, at least the guy who does the data is excited about the prospect of working with us on developing that more nuanced accountability plan, but has said that those need to be considered optional measures as opposed to the required ones. So what they've requested is that we adopt the required measures and then come back to the work of adding additional optional measures, like when we come back into our August meeting, in the summer, that we can complete the work that we started as a task force, but in the meantime, that we would affirm our adoption of the required measures.
It's sometimes referred to as feeding the beast.
I'm part of the task force that's supposed to be working on this. On a personal note, unfortunately, I had scheduled travel for about 2 weeks leading up to now, and so I'm catching up on this information that we have to pass what's already been presented to us, and then create optional measures afterwards. So, I have become persuaded to a certain extent by Peter's various comments, I think supported by some of the other veteran members, that as it stands now, this doesn't represent what the school is trying to accomplish. So that gives me a bit of a reservation on voting reservation because I've accumulated some information, which I cannot articulate in any detail, that says we're simply not going to make these measures as they stand now. And so that gives me a stronger reservation for voting for this in its current form. And then my third reservation is with regard to the college preparation, goal 7 in particular. If and I would like to be corrected after I say what I think I understand. What I think I understand is we're not going to make these either. And in particular, we're not going to make them. So I have maybe my deepest reservation about continuing to call the school a college preparatory school, meaning we have to strive to and meet these 1, 2, 6, 5 data points. So my inclination going into this is to abstain. I will be persuaded back the other way because if we have an issue of timing and if we have an issue of quorum. But I have great reservations about saying we're going to do this and that we accept, or that we accept this as what the school should be doing and will be doing to the best of our ability. How I had my say.
I share your reservations.
I think we probably all do.
Well, I think,
So I wonder.
it's an interesting, I'm sorry, so say it's an interesting situation because the authorizer is saying these are required measures, but then the board also has the power to adopt the accountability plan or not adopt the accountability plan. So it's an interesting, and so the board could choose at this time not to adopt this accountability plan or adopt it. And
I wonder, because it seems to me that may be ultimately counterproductive. Having just said what I said, I'm not sure that we gain a lot by saying, no, we're not going to adopt it. We'll talk to you between now and August. So I wonder if our minutes can reflect and then be sent along with our adoption some short but strong, if the others feel the same way, sense of the reservations we have about having to adopt these, knowing in some instances it's impossible for us to meet these standards, and having other either philosophical or practical reservations about others of these data points.
I think also that those optional measures will be very important additions in the respect that they really will allow, not only allow the authorizer, the Charter Schools Institute, to understand and assess our students' growth and development and accomplishments during the time that they're here at this school, with such a small population and so many students starting in different places. That's why the finish line, can't really be the same for all students. And year to year, cohort to cohort, the characteristics of cohorts are very different. And again, it just depends on the individuals who come and their preparation for school. So the optional measures will allow the Charter Schools Institute to understand the accomplishments of the school and to make the case and their recommendation to the Committee on Charter Schools when they have to ultimately vote. So just to make sure that we're all clear about the fact that we don't have to make all these standards in order for the authorizer to recommend that our charter be renewed. Like the one I think in particular we're talking about that we just don't see happening is that the number of students with an advanced designation diploma will exceed that of the local district. if we were in Buffalo, then that would be a much different standard than it is in Ithaca, where we are, you know, in Little Red territory. So but that is the kind of information that they'll take into consideration as they look at the whole picture, including our optional measures. So the conversation was encouraging in that respect. That said, I mean, you know, it's still an accountability plan that says that these are the goals and the goals that we need to be focused on working towards.
Okay, so I'm a little lost. So.
That's probably a good thing.
If we did not, if the board did not adopt the accountability plan, it sounds like you have to, but what happens if you don't?
Don't
Like,
adopt it or
if you
don't
don't
meet the
adopt it?
standard?
Oh, no, I understand not meeting the standard, right,
Okay.
adopt it. Does that mean, what, some limbo happens, what is the practicality of not adopting?
That's a very good question. I don't know if there's any practical, I don't know if we, I assume that if we don't adopt the accountability plan measures, that they are still in force in terms of the assessment of the school and the recommendation of the authorizer when it comes to renewal. That would be my assumption.
My guess is that the main thing it would accomplish is making conversations with the Charter School Institute more difficult going forward.
I'm the dark cloud here, so rain a little bit harder or more, I guess. I've listened to the discussion of how in the past we attempted to create optional measures and then found that they were, for the most part, useless because they were too difficult to actually document. Though I'm happy to work and like to think of myself as clever along these lines, I think that the optional measures are worrisome in that just your experience is probably a pretty good indicator of going forward. And the same problems will crop up.
Yeah, we have to be really careful what optional measures we choose, because we could create a lot of work for not a lot of value added back. So the optional measure we had in the last accountability plan that called for looking at a composite district was a big case in point. That was a lot of work and calculation that didn't really yield any information that was helpful to us. So we'll add that one this time.
What's the timeline for adding the optional measures?
August, we would want to finalize those in August, so it would be a summer project.
Before the new act. So I'm not even sure we have a motion on the table.
Not yet. No.
Discussion.
We're discussing a motion.
It sounds like, you know, even though they're calling this the accountability plan, and we're saying that given these particular outcomes that they would like for us to achieve, we have a lot of questions whether or not we can manifest these achievements per se. That some of them, it's just a process that they want us to go through. That we're in the process of striving to achieve the best possible outcomes that we can possibly achieve for the students that we serve. If we're fortunate enough to be able to achieve outcomes that meet their standards, that they will evaluate us by, so be it. If we're not, we've also identified some alternatives that we would like to be able to measure ourselves on in terms of the outcomes that we philosophically create the school to achieve, and that's equally important to us, or more important to us. and therefore, you know, we're living this duality of existence in terms of trying to reach a standard that we may not be able to reach in terms of how they're going to measure us, and they ultimately get to make a decision whether or not we have lived up to a standard to the point where they want us to continue to do what we're doing. So, you know, with that said, I see our work continuing regardless. The more that we can identify what it is that we're trying to accomplish and have it in line with what it is they would like for us to accomplish, so be it. I don't see any, you know, I see your point, Joe, and wanting to go on record of being able to communicate to them our sentiment as it relates to standards that they set before us to adopt. I support that. But I don't see the need to postpone the process because I don't think it's going to change.
I agree, and I appreciate your articulating that so well.
Yeah, and I think as Tina pointed out, I was going to say that the root of my
Table thumping.
misgiving, misgivings about this is the extent to which it's asking us to run some race in a school district that we're not really part of. You know, we have kids coming to this school from many, many, many different school districts. And so the idea that we're being measured against the one where we happen to be geographically located as opposed to some kind of balance that represents in a more accurate way the makeup of who we are, to me is really my fundamental objection to this plan. And I think we're just going to have to continue to have that conversation with the Charter School Institute. That's the conversation I really want to have with them. Is it all possible?
Some of these measures are more advantageous for us, like for instance, 75% of graduating students demonstrating preparation for college by either passing an AP exam or a CLEP exam or passing a college level course. All of our students, you know, we're really structuring so that all students have an opportunity to take a college level course that they can be successful in. The last accountability plan said that they would take 2 classes, you know, and so which has been a measure that's been higher than we've been able to achieve. Coming into this next year, we've been awarded an AmeriCorps Vista that will be a college success Vista member who will support our students, particularly lower income students, in making a successful transition to matriculation into college. Because one of the things that's been challenging for us is for those students who've been accepted to then actually have the support to take the steps to actually enroll and matriculate. So we're excited about the prospect of working more closely with TC3 through this AmeriCorps Vista member to help more of our students make the transition into a very fine local college. And so so I think that there's some things where we have some supports in place, and there's some things about these measures that, you know, that we can feel hopeful about. And there are some places too, although the math score that students have to achieve is higher at 80%, only 65% of the students need to achieve that level as opposed to 75%. So there's some places that, you know, where maybe, you know, 6 times 1 doesn't put another, you know, we're going to come out higher in some places than we might have under the old plan. So that's me with my glass half full analysis of the required measures.
On the alternative measures, I'm wondering, this is a topic, just a thought, and that is, I wonder if we would be able to create a hypothetical demographic that tracks ours and then measure our students against that hypothetical demographic as opposed to the IHS. One thought, and then another thought which I've shared with Tina, and this is a relatively small detail, but my experience and my colleagues who are still active in the field continue to tell me that the ACT set of standardized tests are superior in terms of their accessibility to the kinds of students that seem to predominate here. That the SATs are still essentially and historically geared for highly academic kids in an educational program, and the ACT is not so much that way, or maybe even better than that, really designed to assess what students learn within the classroom and test in a straightforward way as opposed to the fairly convoluted way that a lot of questions are asked in the SAT. So I'm going to say in this forum that I would strongly urge our counselor and the others who are involved in making decisions on those kinds of standardized tests that the ACT either be piloted for our students or a step back from that would be to do the same kind of communicating with others who are in the business of placing students in college and helping them put their best foot forward. Survey some group of those folks and see if what I understand is in fact the case. And then, if that is the case, move in that direction and away from the SAT, possibly the PSAT. I don't quite know the difference there, but ACT versus SAT.
Charter Schools Institute would be on board with that.
Oh,
That's good. Because this time around, they have SAT or ACT tests in these new report measures.
yeah, that's
So they,
well and good, but when your guidance counselor says you're taking the SAT, what do you say?
right.
There used to be a serious geographic issue with
There
the
used to be more of a
SAT
Midwest
versus ACT. I know when I was in school, I was told if you're gonna go to school on the East Coast, you should take the SAT. If you're planning to try and go out west, you should definitely take the ACT. I don't know if it's quite that bad anymore, but it's, I'm not sure.
I think
That would be
very
something
much
to have to-
less so. That's different than saying most kids on the East Coast take the SAT. They do over the ACT, but I think the college admission offices are more sophisticated, and also some say, we don't care what test you take, we don't want to know the score anyway.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
most
think
schools are
at
going
the
to that
admission
being
level,
optional.
the sophistication and the willingness to take the ACT on the east of the Mississippi is much greater than it was.
I don't know how many, but we do have a group of students taking the ACT this Saturday. So we'll see.
It'd be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, yeah.
They come leaping out of the test saying, oh, it's so easy. Everything I learned at New Roots was applicable. The ACT will know that that was
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Vote on this.
Call for
We
the
need,
question.
we need a motion first.
Just a quick question. I don't know if this has been discussed in the past, but I wonder if there's any value in including a lot of the measures here are absolute measures, absolute percentage measures, absolute comparative measures, and I wonder if there's any value to including growth measures. I'm not quite sure what that would look like.
But I think that's-
Has that been?
Well, I think that's
No.
what we'd like to see with the optional. That'd be the main thrust, I think.
And I think it was at the last meeting, Brian told us all, the counselor spoke a little bit about the MAP testing, and he got notice that our Regional Information Center is going to be beginning to support that testing, which would just take us light years ahead in terms of being able to look at student growth over time. And students would take the exam online, so we'd we'd be able to manipulate and look at that data in ways that we just can't with the terminals. So we may have some support via technology and some new testing measures that are being used. And that's actually the one, Joe, that you and I had looked at, and so the task force work is what set in motion exploring whether that was something we could do. So ideally, that's all going to dovetail, and we can be thinking about what information can we get from the map testing that can inform our optional measures.
We need a motion. We'd like to make that motion. That beeping sounds like something from Mission Impossible. Something's gonna happen.
Yeah,
here
it's
soon.
my watch. Happily, I never hear it. Sorry about the watch, I don't know how to turn it off.
Well, I can make a motion to adopt the accountability plan with the caveat being, that we articulate a message, to the Charter School Institute, that expresses our concern, about the accountability plan and our desire to continue to have conversations with them, as it relates to.
We look forward to
Yeah.
continuing our conversations.
I think a lot of what I've heard both with staff as well as, within the accountability plan task force is the desire to set high standards for student achievement that are ones that we can work towards knowing that they are achievable, and to have the standards for students reflect the different paths that students take. I think we had a nice good conversation here with some faculty members, the academic leadership team, in which we talked about how different students choose different academic paths, in as in other high schools. So how do we create optional measures that show their achievement of the goals that they've set for themselves? So I'm excited about the process of putting together that optional plan that demonstrates the high standards we have for ourselves as a school and for our students, and that we hope to cultivate them to have for themselves.
Yeah, I would be particularly interested in hearing from the teachers, as we move forward about, their ideas about optional indicators, and really get a better sense of what their thinking is on what would make for an appropriate accountability plan. And again, it just goes right back to there's not another charter high school in the state that takes students from as many different school districts as we do, period. And so one size fits all accountability plan is not necessarily going to do the trick. And that's where I think the teachers really come in. They're the ones who work with the students on a day-to-day basis, and know what those students' needs are and what the challenges are for the teachers and what we can accomplish together. So we have a motion, and we need a second.
I'd be willing to second that motion.
I think Conrad should be allowed to.
The way you put it, I'd second that.
Yeah, that was very well put. So, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And all opposed? And any abstentions? So noted.
One abstention.
One abstention. So, that takes care of,
Takes care of all the voting measures, and so the one other item of business is continuing in executive session to talk about the, collective
Negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law.
So we would need a motion for that one, to go
I
into
don't make a
executive
motion
session.
to order pizza. That's just me.
So,
All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? So be it. It's, here we go. 7:35, going into executive session.
Have a good evening.
That's right, I don't say you.
Come yet?